is our second public forum. To those that may have joined us last October, thank you again for coming out. For those, it's your first time seeing the renovation. Welcome. We're really excited to present what we have in store for you tonight. I'm just going to hand it off right now to our board president, Roger Parfitt.
Welcome everyone to the library. Great to see library enthusiasts, patrons, citizens of Glencoe. Great to have you here. There are a couple of sets of people that I want to give a special acknowledgement. So I'm here representing the Board of Trustees. We have at least 3 trustees. Wave your hands. Three trustees from the board here tonight, which is great. The trustees have worked hard on this project, and we're really eager to show you where we are so far and share our enthusiasm for what the library will become. There's another couple of groups here. There's several attendees from the advisory council. Why don't you raise your hand and sit up? Thank you. These are people who have been working really hard at sharing with all of Glencoe what this renovation is all about, and telling people about it, generating some enthusiasm for it, generating some donations for it, which is much appreciated, and just in general informing the Glencoe public so no one is surprised about what we are planning. I also see some friends of the library. Thank you, Marty. We appreciate your friends. Thank you. You've been supporting the library for how many years? Well, right. And that's great. We really appreciate your friends and love all the work you do and the support you give to the library. Thank you very much. So, what's the reason for us? Why are we here tonight? The building has many urgent maintenance issues, many problems. Its layout no longer serves our needs. Tonight, we're here to listen to a plan on how to improve it, build on it, and make it into a great asset for Glencoe. Getting here where we are tonight has been a long journey. Our librarians have consistently provided a good job of giving the community great services, great collections, great programming, and this library has been an asset to Glencoe. Our librarians do a lot in an 84-year-old building. Increasingly, however, the building is working against us and not really for us. We have a number of infrastructure issues with our building. I can give you a very long list. Ones that come immediately to mind are flooding issues in the basement. Have been spent talking about sump pumps than I can possibly remember. An inadequate and patchwork HVAC system, which many of you will be aware of if you've ever been in any kind of a meeting or presentation here, because any room in this library that's comfortable when you first walk in, after 20 minutes, it's not. And an electrical system that provides approximately a third of the electricity that we need to run a modern building, and also, I hate to admit, it's cloth covered the way they did it in 1942. Not exactly current standards. We also hear disappointed staff tell us that many of the great events that they plan are either limited in the number of people that they can hold in the space that we have, or they don't even hold the event at all, because they just don't have an appropriate space for it. Our one cramped meeting space, the Hammond Room upstairs there, is not really a great location for any of our events, but it's used many times every day, requiring multiple changeovers that not only labor intensive, but often prevent proper setup. There just isn't enough time or space. So the board felt we were doing a good job responding to every leak and breakdown, but we were unhappy. We felt like we needed an overhaul plan to know what does the building actually need, rather than responding every month to a different emergency. So going back 4 years, 2021, we engaged an engineering firm with expertise in libraries to provide a review of the building and to define what repairs we could expect over the next 5 years. They identified over 100 actions that were needed to maintain the building in its current form. 20 of these actions were listed as top priority. We found this list to be a helpful starting point, but it includes only maintenance issues that we will face in the building. It does not identify the changes we need to make to the building to better reflect how libraries are used today as opposed to how they were used in 1942 when the building was built. So for the overall, so we got this list, there's a place to work from, but it wasn't actually very helpful for creating an action plan of what are we going to do. So the next step was to do a strategic plan. What do we want the library to be? What changes do we need to make in the library to make the library forward-facing? In that process, we found out a lot of things because we engaged the community and asked them, all of you, what do you like about the library? What do you not like about the library? What could we do better? One thing we found people love the library, especially its warm and welcoming character. You want the library to retain the beautiful facade of Park Avenue. And you want to retain this room, the Johnson Room. You also want a building that's much more functional and comfortable and provides an updated response to the library's key functions in 2025 and beyond. In particular, you identified the need to make the library better suited for what the words these days are called the third place. You want a place to come, to meet your friends, to gather, not necessarily the way it used to be. You used to come, get a book, and leave. That's not the way the library is used these days. You want the library to work as an attractive and effective gathering space for the entire Glencoe community. So we put together a strategic plan. We identified some specific items that need to be addressed in the building, including, of course, implementing all the top priority items, including a new electric system, more meeting rooms for getting together, working together, studying in small groups, a larger, more comfortable space for community events that will do three things. Allow us to better accommodate the existing events, add to the number of events we can hold, and to increase the size of events of population that we can hold in any one event. So we really have an important element to be able to improve the facilities that we provide for Grace. And the other librarians do such a great job in organizing and planning the events for the community. Other high priority items: better climate controls, fewer hot and cold spots, better use of the lower floor, better acoustics. Anybody who's trying to check the book out, and there's a children's program going on, and actually talk to the librarian at the desk, will tell you the acoustics are not so good in here. There is no quiet and noisy room. You mentioned all noisy when the kids are here. Improved infrastructure that reflects the village goals on CO2 emissions, the green initiatives, and something that we really thought better use of the library's position right there on Wine and Green. The way this library is set up, it's very hard to involve anything with Wine and Green right now. So it's like two different islands. So immediately upon approving the strategic plan, we realized what we need is an organized master space plan to go forward. After an exhaustive review of proposals from more than 15 potential firms, the board hired Skidmore, Owings Merrill to create a plan geared towards meeting the needs identified in the strategic review. Skidmore was hired from a large field of interested candidates for three reasons. One, they listened to us. We heard back from them that they actually had heard what we said. Two, the recent success in creating libraries of all kinds of different sizes, all kinds of different communities. And that's what the team that Skidmore has brought to this project. And 3, because they provided the most interesting ideas in their master plan for what we could do with the library and how we could make it better. So they understood which features of this 84-year-old building we needed to retain and which ones needed to be improved. So a little over a year ago, Skidmore completed a draft of their master space plan for the library that provides them many ideas that respond to our stated needs. Over the course of the last year, we have presented this plan to many different groups of patrons and received lots of different feedback. Most importantly, what we learned is, although we had planned pretty minor changes for this room, the community got back to us that they did not like it. They wanted this room just like it is. Don't try to improve it. That message was pretty loud, and we actually heard it. So I think what we will find tonight is that Adam cleverly said, let's leave the room alone. After incorporating these changes, the library is close to proceeding with the next step, which will be a referendum for a bond issue to help provide the financing for this restructuring. I'll give you some more details about the financing after we hear from Adam. So with this opportunity to hear Adam Semel of Skidmore discuss the plans of the team and to show us some of the key features of the renovation. Afterwards, we'll have time for a quick discussion of next steps from me, and then we'll have Q&A from all of you. Adam is a partner at Skidmore. He's an award-winning architect who's worked on several successful library projects. He's also a long-time Glencoe resident, which I think is really a great combination. We have an architect here who's got real roots in the community. So not only has great ideas on what the building can be like, but he understands what we want and need here in Glencoe. So, yeah, show us what you have.
The kind of introduction. Some other team members are great, and the work that you're going to see tonight is the result of all this really great collaboration. This is our 5th library. This is our 5th community library in the last 10 years. For fans of architecture here, you probably know the name Skidmore, Owings Merrill, but you may not associate it with community libraries, especially in Chicago. But actually, the first one was the Chinatown Library, which we did with Aaron Cabinargi, who's in the back there, which kicked off this really special journey that we're on. And that project was incredible, and it was the result of many collaborators. Aaron was the executive director of the Public Building Commission in Chicago, which developed all the libraries and police stations and fire stations and many other things, and took a big risk in going the direction we did for many reasons, and the result was extraordinary. That library made a big splash in the world of library design, and here we are. And it's really cool. And that project was very much a manifestation of a community in Chinatown in Chicago that was so engaged, knew what they needed, and made that thing happen by sheer force of will. And here we are in Glencoe, which is an incredible community, an engaged community, and we're here to make something special happen very much for this community and by the community. And for me personally, I can't even say what an honor it is to be, and how special it is in my career, which has taken me all over the world practicing architecture, to be doing something in my hometown where I'm also raising my family. Feels like a big responsibility as well. I just want to say that because I have to look all you guys in the eye every day. So a lot of people here just from the faces, haven't seen this before. I'm going to walk you through a little bit of process, how we got here, jumping off from where Roger's kind of ended with the master space plan. I'll just recap so you can see the kind of engagement we've had, the kind of inputs, and how we made some of the programming decisions we got to. And for those who've seen this before, it may be your 5th or 6th time, but there's some new stuff. So pay attention, and it's really fun. This is just a visual showing the capital needs assessment that goes all the way back to 2021. So Roger mentioned this. The board has been planning this for years. They recognize the need. They've been doing the hard work and laying the groundwork for what you see tonight, which is a design proposal, but it's responding to all the diligence that came before we started. So it started with this assessment that helped the board understand
all the problems with the building, which we are going to address through this through this project. And then subsequent to that, they did a different kind of exercise, which was a mission, vision, values. And this helps create alignment and engagement around keywords that allow the board and the stakeholders and the sort of the community of the library, including its executive director, Andy, and the staff, to align around what this is all about. And it allows us to go back to the mission, vision, values and make sure we're on track with that. So all this work was done prior to us getting engaged, and it laid the groundwork for this, this work to be really seamless from there. So again, we've done, and I've contributed to 5 library projects, and this is the 5th in the last 10 years. Each one is different. Each one is by and for its community, and yet there are some common themes, and you'll see them tonight in the library. So just a few examples. You have the Appleton Library that we completed this year, the Chinatown Library that kicked it all off, and then in Long Beach, California. If you include that, it's our 6th. But what you might notice, especially in Dust Shot, is the idea of the community and the expression of what's happening in the inside projecting to the outside, like a lantern or a beacon. So these are really bastions of community. What's happening inside a library, it's free, it's public, it's welcoming, it's resources for everybody. It's really important to us that there's an aspect of display of that, because it really it's what a library is all about. It doesn't have to be big and bold like Long Beach, it can be small like Appleton, but it's an important part of what we try to bring. And then on the inside, very different environments, but always bringing daylight. That's really important to a library environment. Light and bright with transparency and connectivity, really intuitive wayfinding, fun graphics, appealing to different ages and helping everybody know what's where and how to get there. And then when we can, warm, durable, but also warm materials that you want to touch. That's why people love this room so much. It's the kind of materials that make you feel comfortable. But libraries today are not like they used to be. There was a period of time where everyone said they were dying because of the internet. 20 years later, nobody thinks libraries are dying. They've proven themselves as more important than ever, especially now that Starbucks closed. This is the third space. And by the way, Starbucks is failing at being third space too. I think maybe we can agree on that too. But what libraries are, and I just want to mention too, one other person who's a really key collaborator on our team, another person who was part of the Chinatown Library and every one of the subsequent libraries that we've done, Erin as well, is Andrea Telly. And Andrea, part of our team here, helps us think about what libraries are today. She spent her whole career at the Chicago Public Libraries, finishing as the interim commissioner of Chicago Public Libraries. And then the minute she retired, I called her up and I said, we got to work together on libraries. And so our former client, who was so important to us in helping learn what libraries are all about, became our collaborator on Appleton and now Glencoe. She helps translate, because she's a librarian for 40 years. She helps us translate the language of librarians and how a library operates to design for us. We're architects. She's really at the intersection of this, and she's a key part of our team. And so working with her, understanding and observing libraries, we see them as intersection of ideas, a place where people come to talk about ideas, like a forum, a place where people come to gather, a place where people engage in technology, and technology is changing all the time, so we have to think about that, make this a place that's going to be relevant many years in the future. It is still a content repository, books and every other type of media that we want to share and make available as a public resource. It's definitely a place for learning, and it is, of course, not just quiet anymore, but also loud. And we have to design for that so it can have both quiet and loud spaces and work effectively for many, many different things. Roger talked a little bit about this. The words are a little small, but this was just an attempt to capture our process. We started in 24 with our master-based plan. We have had lots and lots of meetings. We did a town hall last year. We did a town hall this year. This is our public forum now. In between, we've been meeting with the Plan Commission, the Zoning Commission, the Landmarks Commission, really bringing this through stakeholders and community engagement, really of the town. A lot of people have seen this, hundreds, I think. And going forward, we're really at the last step of the big process that's going to lead us to a referendum in March, and from there, design and hopefully construction. What do we love about the library? A lot. People love, and this is coming from people we talk to and listen to, people love the exterior, the way it's set back on the north side, the way it's warm and welcoming and really feels like a bit of an overscaled house. That's an identity that I think people really appreciate. And then this room is really well loved. The way light comes in from the east, the wood paneling, the fireplace, the comfortable seating. But as you get to know the building, and especially if you get a backup house tour, which I'm sure Andy is happy to give you, there's a lot about the library that could be improved. Everything from the front of house spaces, which don't function optimally for all their uses, to especially the back of house spaces where storage and offices and functional spaces have everything from issues around how they're being used functionally to the support systems like HVAC that support them. A lot of issues to work on. And the deeper into the library you go, the worse it gets. So what we did at the beginning of our process was we spent a few days combing the library and spending time with Andy's whole team, getting to know how programs work here. What are the operational roadblocks? What are the needs? What are the things that are working well? And we did workshops with admin, facilities, programs, and communications. We spent time in the children's area, the adult area, and then circulation and technical services. And from that, we sort of capture all that information, everything we heard, we put it in a document. This is all part of our master space plan. And this helps us organize what we call a program of requirements, functional adjacencies that we put back into the roadmap. We then work through this master space planning process with Andy and the team, the staff, as well as the library board through an iterative series of workshops to develop that program adjacencies and eventually design concepts into a design proposal. Some of the high-level observations that we made and then were really reiterated by the people we worked with. When you walk in, it's not a very intuitive library. It's not a very connected library. So the stair orientation is a good example of that. Building on that, the elevator is hard to find. It's hard to navigate into, and it doesn't actually touch all the half levels of this building, so it's not fully accessible. We have some non-compliant ADA access issues in the front that we're going to plan to fix, and then a lot of ADA issues and accessibility issues in the basement, as well as over there in the stacks. This room doesn't serve the needs of the community very well. Just setting up this room takes half the day, right? And then you have to break it down in the morning. So you lose the room for, I don't know, almost 12 just to have a meeting like this. So there's a real need for a space that can accommodate more than this many people, up to 150, in a way that doesn't interrupt library operations. So comfort and sustainability are tightly linked in our world. We want to do, as we solve the problems of the systems, which are real needs, everything from drainage and leakage in the basement to the HVAC and the electrical upgrades that are needed. We want to do it in a way that's going to be efficient, comfortable, and of course sustainable. So those things really go together. Talk a little bit about that more. We have areas with low ceiling heights. We have books stored in a way that is appropriate for Northwestern Library's 10 million volumes if you're doing research, but for a community library like ours, is it really the best way to find something to read? No. So we want to make better use of that space and put the books, organize the collection in a way that it's more like this, and it's something you can discover and enjoy and then sit down and have a place to read. So stepping back, what you're looking at is what we call a site plan. So you're looking down on the plan of the building and the exterior around it. We sort of start our design process from the outside in and the inside out, and we look at constraints and opportunities. What's happening around the building and how does it operate in the village, and what do we want to see around it? What do we also want to improve? And start to think about catalyzing as Glencoe also changes. And Glencoe is going to change over years. So this is the building. Park Avenue is to the top of the page. North is kind of up, and Green Bay Road is to the east. So I already mentioned we really like, when I say we, it's us as architects and also the community, we really like the setback on the north. In the way, as you turn into Glencoe off Green Bay Road, whichever direction you're coming from, this is really the moment you know you're in town. It's really recognizable. It's been this way a long time, and it's really lovely, with a beautiful garden in front. So when we're looking for space to add to the building to accommodate some of these needs, we knew north wasn't the way to go. We also thought the setback on the east, which creates a bit of a buffer and a nice garden, and a little distance from Green Bay Road with landscape between us, let's not go east. Doesn't make sense. The opportunity to push out really is the southeast and the southwest corner. And today the building cuts in here, and there's a parking lot there, which is not even that functional, and definitely an eyesore on Village Court. And then this cut in here, both provided opportunities to sort of square off the building. I'll show you how That allowed us to also think about a new relationship to the village green, starting to think about bringing in south light to get that daylight, which is great from the south that I talked about earlier, as well as connectivity to the village green and starting to more inside-outside interaction. And then lastly, village court is really not great, to say the least. If you think about going down village court, it's almost like an alley. The bank has no door on village court. The library has its glass block and then its parking lot. And then you have a parking lot, and then you have a loading dock. On this side, you have Village Green. And all those things, I think, keep Village Green kind of out of our mindset. When we think about Glencoe, Village Green is probably not the first thing you think of. But if Village Court were different, it could be one of the things that is part of the heart of Glencoe. You know, there's many things in Glencoe that are lovely village spaces, but it's totally underutilized and underactivated. I think the library could be a first step in a longer-term vision in really reorienting the town around that as a center that could be a real space in Glencoe. We're going to talk more about that. I'll show you it visually as we get there. So through this process, we developed some design concepts and principles, some of which are articulated here. Consolidating the staff space because the offices are a disaster right now. The team needs more functional office, and they're also spread around and taking up what could be valuable front cut space. So we're going to take most of the offices and create a really functional staff suite in the low ceiling area where the stacks are now. That's here. We're going to clarify circulation and wayfinding so everything's more intuitive. We're going to bring in daylight from the south. We're going to also connect to outdoors as we do it. And then we're going to expand the program to the south and square off the building. As we do this, we're looking at low carbon materials, thermal comfort. We're going to go to an all electric building, which is going to be a lot more efficient. And longer term, it's going to zero carbon out the building as the grid improves, which it is anticipated to do. We're going to bring in access to daylight for comfort as well as human stimulation. We're going to connect to nature. We're going to be flexible so the building can be relevant for a very long time. The most sustainable building is the building you hang on to and don't take down. The building you renovate and don't replace. These are the basic principles. We're going to fix the ADA issues, make it accessible to all, inside and out, and think about resilient materials and low carbon materials like timber, not only in the finishes, but even in the structure. So when we think about the library today, and when you think about it from the village court side, village green side, some really beautiful trees, really mature trees are there. And as we reorient south, and as we open up the building to more light, they're going to provide beautiful views and shade as we create that, invite the daylight in, and the indoor access becomes more seamless. What you're looking at is a view of the back of the library from the southwest corner of the park. And the form here in the middle is exactly the same building form that we have today. So the proposal doesn't intrude on the park at all. It's maintaining the same line, but it is taking the brick facade off and going to glass so that as we enter into the library, it's going to have this daylight that really draws you in. And then the additions that I told you about, and I'll go inside in just a minute, for the program room and community room are here, new reading room and children's room over there, squaring off the building. So here's the ground floor plan. And if you can imagine entering at the top, that's the entry. What is today Andy's office will become our first lounge and meeting room. It's right there behind my dad. And where we have the stack space today becomes an office suite, which is going to be super functional with private offices as well as shared workspace right next to the book drop-in cart, storage dumpster, just a really functional space that'll be really adequate and serviceable for the staff, but least appropriate for front cuffs because it has a low ceiling. We're going to move the elevator from where it is today next to the stair over here to this location that is right off the entry and consolidate our two stairs, one going down and one going up, into one with light down from above. So again, these things will help us make it more intuitive in terms of wayfinding. Instead of two circulation desks and you don't know which one to go to with two friendly people, we're just going to have one. And that circulation desk will be positioned in a way where it has eyes on the entry, eyes on the Johnson room, eyes all the way back to the second entrance in the south. Johnson room unchanged. An additional meeting room here where there's currently a private office off the Forte room. The Forte room is our really nice reading room that's in the southeast corner now. Hard to find. If you don't know what's there, you might not even find it. One of the things we're going to do there is open it up. What you'll see in a minute is glass here to the central spine, as well as more connectivity to the new reading room. And so the books that we're taking out of this area, the stacks, a lot of them are going to decant into this new reading room, elsewhere in the library with low shelves so that you can see across them, integrated seating, find a space to sit with the book you've discovered. And then our program room and community space on the southwest. So if you enter the space, this is kind of what it's going to feel like. We're going to go all the way through it. Forte room, more transparency. We pass the stair and elevator, the community room on the left, a new egress stair up to code on the left, community on the right, egress stair on the left, and all the way through with this really nice transparency. So you walk into the library, and it just kind of draws you. This is from the Forte room, looking where there's a bay window now. We're going to connect, looking south. We're going to connect through to the new reading room. So again, we're on the southeast side of the building, facing south, looking at the village green, and to the left, view to the east. Low shelving on the interior, like here, higher shelving on the walls with really nice, comfortable seating integrated throughout. And then this is our new addition on the southwest. So it's got a subdivision, a retractable wall, and we have 2 program rooms. So today, Andy and the team do over 400 programs a year, and they don't have space to do it, so they're turning people away. And what they need is 2 functional program spaces that one can be set up while the other is breaking down and vice versa, or we can have 2 simultaneous events. When we need to, we can combine them into something larger. And then for the occasion where there's a need for a community gathering up to 150 people, like tonight, we're going to fold the wall out and then have a gathering like this. So there's going to be different kinds of furniture, different setup, really flexible, accommodate a lot of different things that the library is doing today. Going downstairs to the lower level, what we're doing is cleaning up the organization lower level, so there are fewer level changes. It's more accessible. It's going to be more efficient, bring more of the collection down here. And we're going to add 1 office over there and then add 3 meeting study rooms over here. So in total, there are 5 study rooms where today there's 1. I think that was a big ask that I didn't mention on it, but that was a big ask for the community. We think 5 is a great number. Some people have said, why don't you do more? But we think 5 will provide a lot that's not provided today. We think this is the place where the teens might want to be. Don't tell them we said that. Just let it happen. But that's a kind of underserved age group right now. There's great spaces today, great programs. Great programs for the teens. There's lots for them to do here, but more space and a little more privacy would probably give them more comfort in using it. And so in addition to cleaning up the ground floor and providing the lower level and providing that kind of space, turning around and facing west, we're also going to have 3 new meeting rooms along the wall there. And going upstairs, what we've done is improved. So as you come off this new stair, and it orients you to the children's desk and you arrive. Right now, there are 2 offices behind the desk. It's not functional. It's really a problem. We're going to take those offices and move them over here, consolidate them with the children's office workroom. So there's a lot more functionality for the staff. It does the children's librarians. The Hammond room will go because it's being replaced by super dysfunctional. It's being replaced by these new program rooms. And then that allows us to really make an improved children's desk arrival and information experience. And then what we're doing is on top of the reading room on the lower right here on the southeast, we have an addition, which is going to accommodate a really flexible, multifunctional space for all kinds of different things, from story time to, you name it, arts and crafts. We'll have books there, and we'll have views of the train that the kids love. This train just goes forever. So that's a lot of fun. We set back the wall to create a little balcony there, so there can be some outdoor component to the children's area as well. So now going to the outside, this is the library we know and love today. I think our love for it starts really high at the front, and as we go around the side, it sort of decreases as you see the glass blocks, not so nice, and then the parking lot, and then a bunch of trees that aren't so great, sort of separating that from Village Green. So there's a lot of really lovely things, but as we kind of move around to the west and to the south, there's really a lot of opportunity for transformation. And so by infilling that corner, that parking lot, it's really an opportunity to sort of catalyze the redevelopment of Village Court and help the community, help the planners, help the Village Board, and others see how this street could be reactivated. There's a lot of talk about rethinking how traffic flows here and other improvements, and as time goes on, that planning will come to bear. One idea that came out of discussions we've had with Village Board, with the Planning Commission, with other people who are really engaged in these topics is the idea, and it's just an idea right now, but if we could, now that we see the library sort of turning south, facing south, having connectivity to the Village Green and now activating the Village Green, how do people get there? Well, you can certainly walk around and come in through the path that's there today. But just like has been done on Tudor Court, at the Writers' Theater, and the Writers' Theater encourages people to park east of Green Bay Road, the village has introduced that safe crossing at Tudor Court. Something like that could be done on the south side of Park Avenue here. And this is the Tudor Court example. And that would help people, help the library when it does encourage people to park east of the tracks, east of Green Bay, have a direct path from the commuter lot over, and then that pathway could be extended through some pretty simple modifications to the interior lot here all the way to Vernon. And potentially, if we even did a pedestrian railroad crossing, we could go all the way to the trail. So this idea of starting to stitch together east-west pedestrian connectivity through the park gives people more ways to get to the park, more access, more visibility. It's part of some future space planning thinking that might actually happen. And as we look at the building from the south now and come around, we're thinking about something that really achieves these goals we have, bringing in daylight in a controlled way so that it's not creating glare, it's not creating heat gain. Those are really important principles, but we have the science to do it with glass and glass reflectivity, as well as these kind of external shade elements that you see in the overhangs. We're using wood materials. We're using wood where we can on the interior finishes that you saw. We're also using wood for mullions because most of the time you see aluminum these days, and it's just not that nice. So going back to the idea of things you like to touch, materials that feel warm and inviting, wood and glass on the side I think is a really nice feature. And as we go around, here's what it looks like directly from the south. In the evening, that idea of a beacon or a lantern, where people in the community can kind of see what's happening. Which is really cool. We've been doing that at other libraries. And then returning to the southwest corner of the park, I want to leave you with this image. And I think Roger has some more remarks, and then we'll do Q&A. Yeah. And we can leave that running. It's no forever.
Let's go. But thank you, Adam. I gave us a lot to look forward to. As any of you who have done a home renovation, all these ideas are very exciting and they are not inexpensive. So when we first saw the space plan, we had a cost estimate of $17.3 million. The board had an update on that cost, and we received that last week, and now it's in the neighborhood of $20 million. And I want you to understand that the board will review every line item very, very carefully. This estimate has been provided to us without a very, very thorough review, but the board will take this very seriously. This is a lot of money. We need to make sure that every dollar is well spent, and we understand where it's going and what the alternatives are. Helping offset some of that, we received generous donations from over 50 Benko residents. We have an announced goal on that fundraising of $2.5 million. We made considerable progress towards that. We're not there yet. We've made good progress. We really appreciate all the donations that we've received to date. Okay, so in the coming days, actually starting tomorrow, the board will be meeting to decide how much that we will ask for the bond financing to be. We have a referendum that's scheduled for March, and we have to decide this week how much that will be. But we start with $20 million, and then we have different sources of financing. We have donations, we have potential board has set aside library funds, we have some grants that we're going to look for. We're going to look for everything we can. But it will be real money. We understand that that's important to people. They don't want to pay more taxes than they have to. But when we look at how this library will be used under this plan, we're confident we're giving the community a real value for money, even at these relatively high prices. We're doing a lot of great stuff that will show in the building and make the building, we think, much more useful, much more of an asset to the community than it already is. So that's what's coming up. We have a board decision coming up within the next week, and then you will have that will be presented to the village. The village has to approve it, and then it will go on to the ballot for the March election, which is primarily, I think, a primary election. Okay. Q&A. Any questions we have from? Yes, sir.
Right. So we have the north, same as today. On the south, we want to introduce an entrance here so that we can have that better connectivity from the south. And people can come in both ways and go both ways. But now the circulation just has eyes on both, which is important. And then there's a third entry. And for people who've seen this before, we think we're going to close up the entry that we had here. And just, it's still early design. We're going to have, we think, one entry into the community room from the other side. And so off Village Court, and I forgot to mention that we want to widen that sidewalk a little bit from about 6 to 8 feet. And then there's this little plaza that kind of notches in. So people with bags or strollers or whatever, or if there's any kind of a line, as the library sees fit, they can operate that door or not. So it's an optional way to get into and out of the program. But really, primarily, it's 2 entrances. And then there's some emergency exits. There's one off of this stair, but that's exit only. That's a good question. There's a couple. I don't know. Do we know the contingency within the 20?
Happy to share. So we've established a very detailed budget based upon the cost estimates for the general construction, but we have a couple contingency lines. So there's best practices in construction is typically when you're doing a development of this scale, that you have a total project contingency that reflects 7.5% of the total construction value. That's an initial off-the-top contingency at the stage of planning. As you get beyond conceptual design and you move into schematic design, design development, and every subsequent milestone, that contingency shrinks because the certainty of the cost estimate becomes greater. In addition to that, right now we've solicited proposals for environmental testing for the building for lead-based paint, asbestos-containing material, as well as the potential, this is an 85-year-old building, in we use heating oil tanks to heat buildings. We may have an underground storage tank, so we're going to get some ground penetrating radar and test them for the soil. So for that reason, we have some unknowns we don't understand yet until we do some of the exploratory testing. So that due diligence will define the costs. So we have about $200,000 in the budget for professional services contingency as well. So we have a number of different contingency items that address unknowns. If they're not needed, they will not be spent. But it's at this stage appropriately conservative at the $20 million. That value, as they become more and more real, gets realized with quotes from professional service providers beyond just architect. Many people think in development, you may specifically be dealing only with a general contractor and an architect. We're going to be dealing with professional service providers, geotechnical borings to understand the structural stability to bear the weight of the building. We're going to be dealing with environmental consulting, both internal and external, from the site itself and the historic uses of the site and adjacencies. We'll be dealing with things like insurance, we're close to a railroad, so we may need railroad protective insurance, we're definitely gonna need builder's risk insurance. So what we've developed is a hugely detailed cost estimate that has appropriate best practices in terms of contingencies, but that's because we're very early on. So subsequent updates will have more firmness, more certainty with regard to each of those line items, which every line item, it's about 100 line items that we budget for. TMI, sorry. All right.
Oh, let me get a microphone.
Okay, I have one question for Roger and one for Adam.
The easy one is,
No, actually, yeah, the easier one is, what would be the term for the bonds proposed in the referendum? When the village was advocating for a positive vote on home rule last year, we were told that projects that have a long useful life, like 30 years or more, should be financed over a similarly long time so that the cost would be borne by all who benefit, people now and people in the future. So how long will the term be?
that's not decided yet. I will say, this is an interesting idea that I'd like to explore actually with the village, so thank you for that. When we've done cost estimates and figured out what the impact would be on the property, we use 20 years.
Sounds like
But it is possible to make it longer.
And now my question for Adam is, your community space addition is proposed at 1,840 square feet. And I counted 182 seats in that area. You said 150. Where are all of these people going to park? Certainly, Glencoe voters have experienced congestion in downtown Glencoe, and this addition only makes it worse. In fact, the email reminder that we got from this meeting that was sent just yesterday evening states, and I quote, "Parking around the library can be tricky." Unquote. If you believe that parking is tricky in the evening, it's a lot worse in the middle of the day when all the businesses in Main Street. Now, I would also like to refer you to other community libraries, such as Gwinnett, Wilmette, Parkley, Forest, Glenview, Northbrook, and Deerfield. All of them have their own parking, and none of them are right next to a very densely built up downtown. You've added more space for people to come to, but I don't see you adding any parking.
Happy to start, and then I'm
Taking some away.
We are, yeah, the spaces we're taking away are, yeah, they're used only by staff, and they're really not used by staff, they're really used for delivery.
And,
There's been a lot of discussion on this. You're not the first person to raise it, and at the planning commission and zoning commission level, this has been really the subject of a lot of discussion. I just want to say a couple things, and then it's really your issue. Both as an architect and kind of urbanist and a resident, I really do. So I experience firsthand the day-to-day congestion. Okay. It's hard to find a spot, usually in the middle of the day, right? So I think one thing is that the 150 seat gatherings that are intended are not aligned with the moment where the congestion is highest. So I don't think it's so hard to find a spot now. And I do think, it's really, but as a resident, I wouldn't move the library. I wouldn't abandon this building and do it somewhere else. Of course we could, and I think that was considered before we came on. The board looked at this every way and sideways. There's a lot of parking around here, but you're going to have to walk a little bit, whether it's from the parking lot there or the parking lot east of Green Bay Road. I think just like Writers Theater, the library is going to have to continue to encourage people in the commuter lot, which also has lots of spaces available. But what I'd really like to see happen is some of the safety measures and just like the pedestrian kind of oriented street upgrades that we were kind of talking about on that slide could happen to make it a little easier to get here, a little safer to get here for those lots.
It's an excellent question, and it's something, as Adam mentioned, we've talked to various village boards and commissions about. Most recently, the zoning commission did adopt a resolution this past Monday night accepting our 2 special use permit applications. Number one, the first application was for the program room itself. Because it's a new build in a business district that is not for business purposes, we needed to get a special use permit for that. They also understood, based on the comprehensive plan right now and the previous downtown tune-up plan, it is vital that the library remains at 320 Park Avenue. That is what the community has said. That is not, and it certainly is our want. We don't want to move out from downtown. So that's that. We figured that out. The other permit that we requested was a parking variance. I will be honest, I'll go on record right now. I'll say I do not understand why we needed a parking variance. The parking lot that exists right now, as I mentioned, is for contractors, vendors, and on occasion, staff that close at night for security and safety reasons. So we're not eliminating parking, public parking. We're eliminating our parking. But the village says we owe them additional parking spaces. Now, the question from the zoning commission was, well, where is everyone going to park? The understanding that we have, based on their studies, their independent studies, is that there is a parking issue at certain points of the day. So we will not be holding 150-person programs in the middle of the day on a Tuesday afternoon. That is not our intention. Our intention is to actually, again, that program room is really about meeting the needs that we have right now. We have aspirational goals for programming, absolutely, but we also understand that there are some certain restrictions and conditions to do that. So we're going to take on what Writers Theater does, again, continue to direct patrons to park east of Green Bay Road into commuter lots, park south of Temple. There's a parking lot over there, and there's various parking spots here. I can't promise you, I'm going on record, I cannot promise you that what we plan to do in the future will impact parking. Right? But we will do everything we can to minimize that impact on parking. We can't control the habits of everyone else in downtown, all the businesses and all the other agencies. But we can certainly collaborate with them. First and foremost, we'll be looking at Writers Theater, as we always do. We always look at their events calendars to make sure that we do not conflict with large opening events, their performances. But generally, we don't anyway. So we'll continue on with that practice. I can assure you that if there is a parking problem that stems from this renovation, we will be the first to address it. We'll make sure it will be on top of it. We'll be proactive about it because we understand that it's a nerve. It's a nerve in town. We recognize that. Thank you.
And if I may add, maybe this is clear, but just to repeat, I'm pretty sure Adam said it during his presentation, the vast majority of uses for this larger space will be when it's divided in two. So there will be very few occasions, and some, they will be important and they will be great, when the room is open and we have that many people. But mostly what we'll be doing is having it in half with smaller populations and staggered start. So that's the way the vast majority of uses will exist, with an occasional one where we pull the curtain and end up having one large room. But that, I think that would be the exception rather than the standard practice.
Hi. I'm just curious about the use of the space and what the downtime will be. Is this something where the library still functioning? Is it going to be full on shut down for 2 years? Am I going to be going to all the neighboring communities for my library needs? I'm just curious about schedule. I have one other little question too. We used to live on that, and it's a wonderful library. I like all libraries up here. They still have a stamp. This upgrade gonna take that charge. Gonna take that. We're gonna go take the books in a little slide, check out 20 books at once, like all the neighboring communities, where we're gonna want to stamp.
So let me answer the last one first. No, I don't want to get rid of the date stamp by they do soon. But we do recognize that not everyone likes it. So we will have various ways of checking out materials. You can check out materials actually on your phone. You can also use our scanner, right? And then you can always continue to bring your materials to the circulation. Your first question was about downtime. There will be downtime. But, and I can't really tell you exactly how that's going to be structured, what it's going to look like. But I will tell you that the management team here has already talked about what we will do to continue providing services during construction. We will lean heavily on what we learned in adaptive services during COVID. During COVID, we introduced virtual programming. It's very popular today. We do remote reference already. So you can connect with the librarian online, email or chat, or etc. Maybe chat function. But either way, we have remote reference, we have remote programming, we have curbside, we have a homebound delivery policy in place. So if someone can't actually physically come to the library staff member will deliver your materials. So we'll continue to do that. We also, during the pandemic, invested in something that was not revolutionary in a way, but an outdoor locker system. During the pandemic, certainly after a year and a half after the height of it, it still continued, it's very well used and continues to be used. So we're relying on those things. When we get to having to move out of the building for construction purposes, well, we're still talking about as most people know here who live in Glenville, there aren't that many spaces. So it's slim pickings on that. We'll work with other agencies or partner agencies. We'll look at other vacant buildings to see what we can do in terms of this.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna walk away from that one.
Good evening. There's many things. What's the current annual budget for the library? Can this project be folded into that? I don't know if there's areas where you can have cost restraints and looking at novel ways of not necessarily curbing what is available, but are there some novel ways that we could squeeze a little bit more juice out of the lemon? Second thing is the property taxes in this area in the last few years are prohibitive. They are forcing myself to reconsider, can I still live here? And so I think the flavor of another tax increase is, I don't find it personally. Not be, short-sighted or anything like that. But I think there has to be a return on the investment also. And then that doesn't just mean, oh, I'm going to get more for my house when I go to sell it. I don't know if I'm ever going to sell my house, but that is top of mind. And then lastly, I would just say that this, part of, I don't know if a lot of you are too young, but if you ever went to the Wisconsin Dells back in the old days, it was beautiful. It was quaint. You could not pay me to get out of my car and go there now. So, big is now always better. Small is beautiful. Living within the confines of what you can afford is important these days. And I'll stop with that.
I'll give you some responses and Andy can help me out. So the library budget right now is about $3.3 million a year. The board has been working last year and this year. We're trying to save money in ways, not quite the ways you described, but we're trying to save money from that to squirrel away for this project. But we are nowhere near the amount of money that we're going to need. We're saving somewhere $200,000 or $300,000 a year. That's better than nothing, but it's not going to get us. But you're right, money matters. I mean, it really matters. We're not treating this lightly. We realize taxes are high here, and frankly, this is going to add. So, to give you an idea, because people need to know what this is going to need to be. 20 years, maybe we should do more, maybe we should do 30 or 40 years. we do 20 years, the village has estimated that if you paid $10,000 a year in taxes, the amount that we're looking to borrow would be somewhere between $125 and $132 per year more in taxes. You know, that's not nothing. It's money, and it's cumulative, because the school wants more, the water wants more, everybody wants more. And so we are looking at this very carefully to make sure that we're getting what, you know, not nice to have, but we're getting the things that we think we really need. And the big issue really is that this building, there's a couple of great spots, this is one of them, and the outside is another one. This building has some nice features, but it just doesn't work for what libraries are today and what they are in the future. We need to make it more responsive to how people want to use the library now and how they want in the future.
Yeah, I don't really have anything much more to add other than the time to actually do a construction project. We lapsed that. We lapped that years ago. When we received that capital needs assessment at the end of 2021, it identified 300 different issues that needed to be addressed within a 20-year stretch, but more than half of them needed to be done in the first 5 years. The clock started ticking 4 years ago. Because we knew then, okay, what we lived with, what we assumed about the building became real. And when that became real, that was the impetus for the board to move forward. But we certainly couldn't slap a plan together and say, this is it. We need to take time to do it. We had to take a glacial pace with it. Because, folks, this is your library. The staff love working here. They love working for you. But it is hard to work in this building. It is hard to work in a building that does not work with you. It works against you. So I do understand your opinions, your thoughts. Small is big. Quaint is great. And this is what the community loves. But when we drill down on that, we said, what about the library do you love? What is it about? What is the quaint? So what is so quaint about it? What is so charming about it? They said, you said, fireplace, Johnson room, step, the front facade. Great, we're keeping it all. But here's all the great other things that we want to introduce to this building that will carry this building at 320 Park Avenue for generations on, and will give us the flexibility that we need. Because, folks, right now it's hard. 5 years, if we don't do anything, it's impossible. It will be impossible. And we lose people. These are things that the average citizen isn't aware of, but I'll be happy to share it. We lose great staff because of how hard it is to work here sometimes. The people that stay here and have served you for decades, they look beyond the difficulty of the job because they care so much about serving this community that has received them so warmly. So there's been a lot of sacrifice. So as their director, I want to give them a better place to work. And I want to give this community, all generations, all the demographics of this community, a place that feels like home. There are elements of this building right now that feels like home, and we're going to keep home. But everything else, it's up for discussion and change. Thank you for that. I thought, Bob, did you?
I actually have a couple of questions. I'm new to this. I haven't seen anything. This is my first time. How many additional square feet are you in out of the building?
All around, but this space is about 2,000 feet, and then that's a 2-story space. Each one's about 1,000 feet. So in total, about 4,000 square feet.
In the existing footprint?
We just 21,000. Yeah.
Okay. So you're eating about 20%.
Yeah.
And with respect to the large space, have you had any discussion? I mean, there's a performing arts center 100 yards from here. And you're saying to us that you're not going to compete in the middle of the day when residents are doing their shopping. So you can compete in the evenings when they're bringing in, I mean, the Performing Arts Center has 250-seat proscenium stages, stage, and it has 115 seat rehearsal area. If you consider, rather than doing such a large expansion, working with one of the local enterprises.
Give that to Andy. I do want to say one thing. When we talk about the percentage of the addition, it's also pretty correlated to the percentage of the budget. So just very broadly, there's three big categories of the budget. The biggest one of them is actually the systems upgrades. Waterproofing basement, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, all the things which are absolutely in the needs category represents the biggest chunk of the budget. Outside this room, there is a lot of work to do in this library in the footprint we have today. And we're not moving the elevator as part of the vanity project. It doesn't serve the building. The building's not accessible. The stair, those things are really important to wayfind. So those moves and finishes and lighting upgrades that are just going to go around with those kind of like levels on the basement, those things are another really big chunk of this budget. And I would put those all in the needs category as well. Many of them are required. And then you have the additions, and they're a piece of the project. But I know that additions look like a lot of change. They are a lot of change, but when we talk about the overall size of the project, those are accommodating the additions are accommodating the needs we have today. And I just want to make sure that's really clear. We try to say it, but it's the 400 programs. It's true when we talk about parking too. Those are the 400 programs they do today. They're not accommodating. They're turning away children who want to pet the sloth. You know, that's the classic example. But there's all kinds of things like that, turning people away because you can't accommodate what you're already providing.
And that's an excellent question. Why can't we partner with agencies like Renovation or the Jacob Center or the Park District and Jacob Center? And the quick answer is we have. We have health programs in the community. We have health programs. We hold programs on Wyman Green when the weather cooperates. Because we know that the kids' concerts, they'll draw over 100 and 150 people. So we know we can't accommodate them inside the building, so why not use the green? We've had health programs in Take It, at Theater, rare occasions over at Central and Meisner Auditorium, and here's the weirdness of it all is people don't come. People don't come. It's branded a library program. There's much more space, ample parking, and they still don't come. There is something about it that when there's a library program inside the library, it's much more, I don't know, maybe, it's something, there's something, and staff, we talk about it, we all have our own theories about it, but we can't really nail down the reason for it. The other part of that, though, is imagine the logistical nightmare of holding 400 programs off-site. Imagine 200 programs off-site. The amount of staff time that it would take to commit to prepping, presenting, and then deploying. It's to me, it's not a great way of spending tax dollars. I think what we want to do is to make it more, have more efficiency in what we do, streamline things, improve the way we deliver our services to you, our collections and programs to you. And to us, that's not a great option. To close down the Hammond room, not have a program room or a community room available on site, and then to satellite everything across the way. It just didn't seem like it makes any logistical sense to us.
I would suggest to you that as we get closer to March and we're looking at this referendum, I think you should try to quantify the 400 programs that you're looking to facilitate. As a resident, I would like to know. I mean,
That's great.
there's a lot of activity. 400 events over a year. It's over one a day.
Yes, it is. Yes,
Let
it
us
is.
know what you want to do. We'll go a long way towards understanding.
That's a great recommendation. That's a great recommendation, and we're already working on it.
But I think you make a good point. We need to do a better job.
If you want to
Explaining
tell
it to, we need to do a better job of explaining how we would actually use it. We're not going to have events for 150 people.
Well, that's why
So we need to be able to do a better job of telling you how we will use it and why it's a good idea. We're both for it.
it's what you want to do.
I think it's just already said. I don't feel strongly that 20 years I mean, this is not a design for 20 years. This is a design for 40 years. And I feel like, I mean, we have gotten hit with 2 other referendums within the last couple of years. And here we are, and this is, you know, the most important one from my standpoint. But it's not a 20, it shouldn't be a 20-year payoff. I really think it
Oh,
should.
good point. We'll talk to Sam.
As somebody who consults the state and local government, the longer the duration of any bond issue, you're paying interest.
Also, that's-
So, I mean,
Yeah, it's not free.
right. The extra 10 years isn't free. Exactly. And I just wanted to point it out as a point of reference. The sooner that you can pay off the debt, the happier you're going to be.
I wish.
Yeah.
Anyway, we touched on this, but do you remember what the estimates were to just do all the projects you needed to do just to keep this building up? I think that's kind of an important comparison to, you know, the new project.
How much does the addition add?
Yeah. But what we did was in the space planning process, we delivered the document to the library and the board as part of our engagement. We broke it into line items that were intuitively understandable and could be chunked off. So we did put a price on that edition in its entirety. We put a price on that edition in its entirety, and then we sort of broke the rest of it into categories like I was doing earlier. One category being like required infrastructure, like absolutely required from the capital needs, and others which are also required by code, and then the kind of following changes that are required. So we did do that. Unfortunately, I don't have it with me, so I don't want to misspeak and characterize. I think you're asking about the additions and what their cost was, but we could certainly follow up.
Certainly share that online. I believe it was 2.5 or 2.5 million for the large program, 2 million for the southeast edition.
It's not more. It may be a little less, but yeah.
Infrastructure just to keep this building up, it sounds like it was in excess of 10 million.
Correct.
Anyway.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's
Oh,
the way I understand about it was, yes, we need to solve anything.
Yeah.
But we're going to spend $11 million and we're going to bring guests in and say, look, isn't this great? They'll say, like, what? And so it was surprising to me how expensive it was to fix the infrastructure needs. And then the true changes that we can show relative to fixing infrastructure seemed like relatively good value.
Okay, so I do have a question, but first I just wanted to address the interest and the long-term bonds. I have a little bit of experience with this as well, and I think that while it does cost more to run a longer term, sometimes the storytelling behind it will win you some good favor. And I think for people who feel like the older generation has been hit with a couple of referenda recently, I think sometimes the storytelling of this is something that future generations are also going to pay for is sometimes.
Yeah, because they'll be using it.
They'll be using it. So I think you need to weigh the cost differential with the narrative.
Right. Good.
But about the design, I have 2 questions, and we've talked about this before. 2 questions. One is trees, and what trees we're going to lose, and what the probability is that beautiful tree right there in the middle, we're going to lose at some point down the road because of disruption to the roots system. So I have tree, and then keep that one. Then my other question is, with that side, if you think about how we're trying to beautify,
Yeah.
Everybody that I've talked to about the design is concerned about the material of the conference room side. It's a very long wall, and it doesn't look very, I don't remember what the material is, but it
So can we talk about that material and
Sure.
whether that really beautifies or
Yeah.
is well?
So I'll start with the material and also the other aspects of the design of that side, and then come around to the trees. So the thought process on the current thinking for that material is what we call a kind of pre-patinated metal finish. And it would be, we want to do the same metal on the ceiling and kind of wrap it down the wall. In a color and a texture, when you put it next to the brick, is really complementary. And so it's a material change, but we are going to look for things to make it complementary when they go side by side, because you're going to have brick on the front with the old windows. As you move around, you're going to have where we had the glass block where we have it today. We're going to bring in vision glass with shades behind, because those are now offices. So that's going to have a look with the wood mullions that starts to tell the story of the old to the new. And then we have this little plaza that I was talking about earlier, and that's where we start to see the metal come in. And our approach to the design, and we do think a lot of people have also responded really favorably. So there's been all kinds of questions and comments, and a lot of them have been really favorable, is, but definitely hear you, is that, you know, it is about a library that is about the next, I would go longer than 30 years. I hope it's a 50-year building. I hope it's a 100-year building that serves this community really well. It's like with the metal that we have in mind. I don't have a sample of it here, but it has a real. It's almost like when copper patinas, but copper patinas, it turns really green. So the materials we're talking about are what we call pre-patinaed, so they hold that color variation and kind of the beauty of the material. It's not a flat metal panel like you see in a lot of buildings these days, where it's painted or it's just a flat finish. It should be a very lively, rich material. It's different acid wash techniques to create that effect. And I personally think it has a really beautiful complementary to the nature that we kind of like are inviting in as we turn and face the village green and to the gardens that we're planning between the sidewalk and the library. But, you know, as an architect, it's just one point of view. But I actually thought the idea of having the new look like the old and try to mimic it was inappropriate. Inappropriate to a design for a library that's all about facing forward into the future and the storytelling of preserving the heritage and like community scale and warmth of this library, which I do believe we're doing, and then transitioning to something very open like right that faces south, which is just this amazing opportunity to bring daylight. We couldn't pass it up. It sort of tells that story as a piece of architecture, and I walk around it every day and see all of you. So I really do hope when it's in place that everybody loves it, truly. You asked about trees, so let's talk about that. Ian, you might help me out here.
The two large trees to the south of the library that you probably love and are talking about are well outside the construction.
Yeah.
The two largest trees to the south of the library that you're seeing close in the
Yeah.
picture there
That's good.
are staying. Those are untouched. And we are working with a landscape architect here shop who's sort of working on exceptional. And they've already been out here. Had come up with a protection scheme. The 5 or 6 that will be removed as part of the library renovation are actually all non-native, or some people call them invasive species, but they're here, they're trees, they're living, but they are non-native. They would typically be marked for removal and like forest management at any rate. And a couple of them are kind of reaching the end of their lifespan. So none of the
So, yes. So the pine tree we're going to lose. It's just too close to the building. And there's one large, it's in an oak. Yeah, it's not in great shape. It's not compared to some of the others, but we're going to lose the one big oak tree that kind of covers over. This one, which is really, really tall, the library's not coming any closer to it. So there's going to be work done in between them, but with tree protection, it should be fine. We're not going to the ground in front. But yeah. 2 trees.
it be a compensatory tree?
Yeah, I think the library is committed to support replanting, which could happen in the park. Maybe on the east side, there's some space that could use a tree or two, but it shouldn't all happen here. It shouldn't happen. Yeah, we don't want to put too many trees. The trees are going to provide a lot of shade as well. So again, I think the physics of sort of controlling how light comes in and making sure it's comfortable and doesn't provide too much heat gain is going to be satisfied by the facade design. The trees is going to be really, so it's important that they stay.
Your drawing doesn't include. Oh. Where's that big one? It goes.
The one that's over here goes. You can't really see it. You can't see it in this image because it's like lined up behind this tree. There is one big tree that we're going to lose.
Right.
And then the pine, this pine goes away. We're going to lose it. We'll lose the pine. We'll lose it.
Okay, we have a bunch of people who have questions. We're running out of time. Please go.
So a comment and a question. I'm also kind of a fan of this north view. I think it's really classy. If anything, I want to see more of the north view when I pass by here. So I wouldn't want any trees to be cut down, but I really would love to see more of this north-looking part. It's just my opinion. Second thing is, are there any outdoor reading areas planned for this? Is that northern part of
We haven't really gotten into too much of the detail of the landscape yet. It's conceptually gardens that kind of front the building on the west and south, many of the lawn. I don't know if I mentioned this when I was talking about the new reading room over here, but we also have a little patio there envisioned. So, and the question about doors, there is another potential access door there, which allows you to go outside and enjoy some outdoor ground floor and balcony. Good question.
I got a comment about the parking. The village has been having parking issues for years and years. The village has never done anything about it. If it's really important, and I'm not a fan of having more parking in the central area, but if it's important to village residents, there are more proposals. They were never acted. I don't think we should hold the library responsible. Second, how realistic is it to ask Metro for a crossing?
I'm not sure. We do a lot of work with Metro. We know how to work with them. It's not easy. There is the crossing at the station, but I think the Green Bay crossing is probably a realistic option.
The Green Bay.
The Green Bay crossing, and then you get to the commuter line. Maybe it's not realistic, and if not, we would just walk around at that point to get to the park.
It's awfully close to the Park Street.
It is close.
The bus stop and everything else. Do you really think it's safe?
The Green Bay crossing? I think it can be done safely. Absolutely. Yes. I think it's super important. It's really successful. There's lights at night. It gives you a landing spot in the middle. It would be the same kind of thing.
Yeah. Street a lot. It's not really that safe. The traffic doesn't.
Right. Right.
Flash lights and everything else.
That intersection needs work. And this is not the only proposal. And I don't think we should jump to this as a design solution. Think of it as conceptual. There's a lot of work to do to figure out exactly what the right solution is.
Yeah. My daughter moved to Skokie and his grandfather, two kids. I was taking them to the Skokie Library. So I can tell you it blows away the Glencoe Library that I love so well. It really opened up my mind to what a library should be. And if any of you don't think that we need an upgrade, I suggest you go to the Skokie Library and see how far behind we are.
There are questions. We have a couple minutes left.
Where is the venue to donate?
Well, that's a tough question.
My favorite question of the evening, no offense to anyone else. We have established a library foundation. If you wish to donate towards the campaign, you can provide a check or however you like a contribution to the foundation. UGPL.org. From there, you can go to the donate page. And yeah. Yeah. Ask and you shall receive. Yeah. Yep. Okay. What a great group.
Yeah.
Linda, did you have something?
Which is, I know many people head out of this wonderfully cold environment for the winter. So if you are heading out of town for some period of time, I encourage you to request your early or mail-in ballots. You can have your voice heard when you support it. If you do, choose not to support it, we still want you to vote because we want people to be engaged in this process.